Good morning and welcome to NFTs Live. I'm your host, Tyler D. It is Friday, December 17th, a sunny and cold day in Chicago. I was supposed to be joined this morning by my main man, Skyhook, but he had something come up at the last minute. He's not going to be able to join us here today, but that's all right. We still have a ton to cover. On today's show, we're going to hit the following. So starting with top news, we're going to talk Vincent Van Gogh versus Nike with Clone X in the middle. Then we're going to talk WAGMI United and the DAO bidding on a professional soccer team. Then 3AC and Nexos partnership for a new NFT lending platform. From there, we'll go into our rotating market segments. We'll talk about Project NanoPass and other market movers from this week. We're going to talk async art and their big week on the back of Xcopy's Grifters PFP. We're going to do blue chip PFPs and check in on the CryptoPunks and see if they still have a pulse or not. Then we'll hit Art Blocks, take a look at some of their floors, and highlight the upcoming curated drop, Jiometory. Then we're going to check in on sports and entertainment and take a look at a few brands dropping NFT projects this week, and then we'll end with a few upcoming drops. A lot to cover. Sound good? Let's get started. All right, our top story of today, Vincent Van Gogh versus Nike and the potential war that is brewing. So I'm going to show a tweet of Vincent Van Gogh's here. I have fractionalized Clone X number 17707 from Artifact and Nike and put it up on Fractional. So why is this important? Tons of NFT owners have put their NFTs out on Fractional. Well, it's all related to the very restrictive terms that Artifact released with their Clone X NFT after their auction. So all of the buyers essentially bought these NFTs without having a chance to read these terms. And the terms are fairly egregious. We're not going to read through all of them, but I'm going to highlight quickly points 9 and 10. So point 9, you will not create, sell, or attempt to create or sell fractionalized interests in the NFT. And then part C here, use any artifact-owned content to create, sell, or attempt to create or sell a new cryptographic token. So we'll talk about why that's important as well. And then term 10 here, essentially saying you are prohibited from transferring to another third party unless the following conditions are met. And then part C of this saying essentially you must provide a written notice to the would-be transferee about the terms and agreements in this license, which essentially means that you would have to ensure any buyer of your NFT has read these terms and agrees to them, which is simply ridiculous. So that's the backstory of what's happening here. Vincent Van Gogh, continuing to push the envelope like he does, said, okay, I'm going to challenge Nike and Artifact on these terms and see if they are in fact going to try to enforce these. So he stood up this fractional vault. He paid 10 ETH for this NFT. Well, it caught the NFT world by storm. And within hours, the valuation of this NFT on fractional hit up to like 900 ETH valuation, partially due to some limited liquidity in the pool. It currently sits at 520 ETH valuation. So for perspective there, the highest selling Clone X is sold for around 288 ETH. This is slightly above floor NFT. Again, he purchased it for 10 ETH. So that's roughly the fair value. But because of the meme value, this has now become, one of the most famous or infamous Clone X NFTs that's out there. And then VVD went even further and asked for artists to commission art pieces based on this specific Clone X 17707 and to put them out for sale on sites like Foundation or Super Rare. And several artists have already done that. We'll show one right now from one of our favorites of the show, Alpha Centauri Kid. He posted this on Twitter on the 16th, just got off the phone with Nike, and you can see it's in kind of his iconic glitch method. He's got another piece that he's worked on that has like this news. In the top news here you see is Clone X 17707. So this is where he's also challenging that part of the terms where you create other NFT tokens based on the original Artifact work. So this is the war. We haven't really heard too much from Artifact or Nike on this. It'll be very interesting to see what happens from here. But as always, VVD taking the NFT world by storm. All right, let's get into our second story. Huge headline that came out yesterday. U.S. group eyes English soccer club saying crypto and NFTs can change the game. Here we see Preston Johnson and Eben Smith, who are two of the primary founders driving this effort. So essentially, a group of American investors tied into this DAO are trying to purchase an English soccer team, and then they're going to rely on advanced analytics and NFTs to essentially create a new model of sports team ownership. They're calling themselves WAGMI United, and they believe that they are in the final stages of purchasing an English Football League club. So there's been a lot of chatter in the NFT Twitter sphere in the last few months about a DAO buying a professional sports franchise. It felt like it could be somewhat serious given some of the players who were chatting about it. But now it looks like they absolutely are serious. It looks like this could come to fruition. And it's going to be one of the first real tests for, are DAOs capable of running a business that's complicated, and how they're going to manage it with decisions and governance and everything that goes with that. So it will be very interesting to watch first if they're able to succeed and win the bid, and then from there, how they'll be able to execute. But certainly kudos to everyone involved. This is a really cool effort, and certainly we'll be watching how this transpires. All right, third story of the day here, more on the NFT finance side, but Nexo partners with Three Arrows Capital to launch an NFT lending and art financing service. So we'll just quickly skim through the article a bit. Essentially, it's a new lending desk. They're going to have 2 NFT collections right off the get-go that are going to be included, those being the Bored Ape Yacht Club and the CryptoPunk NFTs, with more collections coming on the way. Additionally, clients will be issued lines of credit as a means of art financing to purchase further NFT purchases. So that piece definitely is interesting. And then they do plan, again, to bring new NFT sets to the platform here in the future. So this is an interesting one for sure. So a lot of the bull case for being able to hold NFTs for several years in the long term and not sell them is being able to turn them into financial instruments. And now here is another big player offering loans against those NFTs. So we've been waiting on this. Certainly excited to see a big player, come to the table here. Still some questions. I think primarily for me is what is the length and duration in terms of these loans going to look like? So we have some NFT lending platforms already, like NFTFi. Those loans are primarily on the 30-day time duration. There are some that go up to 90, but mostly 30. So I'm curious, to really be able to use these lines of credit, it would be nice to have, 12-month loans or even longer. With that being said, the nature of these NFT markets, they can change so drastically in short time periods that just might not be possible. But we'll certainly be interested to see how this lending service works. All right, that takes us through our 3 top news stories for today. Let's go ahead and get into our market update. I'm going to pull up the Lucky Trader board here and show the 7-day project rankings. So no surprise for anyone who's been following the market this past week, CloneX and then the Mint Vials are number 1 and number 2 on the board. They've done 38,000 ETH volume in the last 7 days. Just an absurd number. I think they're already a top 20 project in just a week and a half or so here in the NFT space. The floors for CloneX went wild on the Nike acquisition news. I think the floor went all the way past 6, went to about 6.3, 6.4 at one point. Has since retraced a bit. It sits at 4.69 here this morning, but still a solid floor. And then the Mint Vials, the unrevealed CloneX, so to speak, sits at 8.8. And we've continued to see, steady market volume at the floor as well as in the high end with multiple 3-digit ETH sales. So CloneX is certainly a new project to enforce to be reckoned with in the market, and they're definitely not going anywhere. We'll go into Punk's detail a little bit later. Decent volume on the week at 7,700 ETH, but the floor 60.95, not great. Neo Tokyo, we touched on them a bit on the last show. They've had a really strong week, 7,500 ETH volume here with their Outer Identities drop, that floor up to 6.5. The BAYC floor, steady at 50.5, down a little bit on the week. A new joiner to the board here this week, Project NanoPass. And I actually want to spend a minute or two talking about this new project. So we'll pull up their page, nanopass.io. Your key to the Nanoverse, 55 unique passes. They ran a Dutch auction. You can see here what the NFT actually provides you. So it's an early access pass that doubles as a plot of virtual land in the Nanoverse. So it is essentially a metaverse play that also acts as a Genesis token. So for those who are familiar with Genesis tokens, the first NFT from a long line of a potential roadmap from a project team, which gives you early or whitelist access to all those future drops. So that's the benefit of owning a Genesis NFT. Another interesting twist from this team is passes grant weekly black boxes. So if we scroll down and read a little bit about the perpetual black box, what's inside, it may contain valuable loot. This loot may contain physical goods, other popular NFTs, or a donation to a charitable cause. The possibilities are limited only by your imagination, as it will be the community that decides what they are. Really interesting idea. I think the key concept here is it will be funded through the community vault, which will receive 7.5% of all secondary market royalties. Essentially what that means is for these boxes to continue to have value each week, it will rely on the secondary market sales. So the more secondary market sales there are, the more valuable the boxes potentially are, less secondary volume, less value. It kind of borders on that Ponzi-ish line a little bit as you're requiring, future buyers to essentially fund the value here. But it is cool, and I am interested to see how these black boxes will play out in these first few rounds, especially the physical goods and how that will work. But they've had some serious success this week already. 3,600 ETH volume traded and a 1.58 floor, which is very solid. We've got another metaverse player, Sandbox, always one of the top names. They did 3,300 ETH, up 72% on the week. The Mutant Ape Yacht Club holding steady, 6.4 floor. Maybe the biggest winner of the week in the PFP market is Doodles. Doodles saw 2,600 ETH volume this week, up 160%. The floor up to 3.89 here, up 60% on the week. I think I saw the floor even get past 4 at one point, up to around 4.2. Really strong week for the Doodles. They are cementing their place in that top 10 list of PFP projects, certainly. Right through the rest of the board here, a bit of new project hot potato going on, I think, with a few of these, with My Pet Hooligan and Croaks. Croaks had a really nice run up pre-reveal and since retraced a bit. My Pet Hooligans really ran up one day this week as well before retracing a bit as well. Ape Kids Club kind of coming down back to earth after the tremendous run they had earlier this week. And then Pepsi Mic Drop, they did 1,400 ETH. They allowed users to mint a free microphone PFP type NFT. I think there was 1,675 in the set. These went all the way past a 1 floor. I think it got to like 1.3, 1.8 at one point before retracing. But a little bit of FUD on that drop, but we'll cover other brands and how they approach NFTs later in the show. So that's really our market update. Let's go ahead and get into our next segment here and check in in one of ones. The real story of the week isn't in one of one art. On Super Rare is actually a fairly slow week, but it's the top crypto artists and their PFP projects. So Async Art, a new platform, it had Xcopy, Coldy, and a lot of money dropping different PFP editions here this week. Right now I'm showing the OpenSea page for Xcopy's project. It's called Grifters. So there was a pre-sale and a public sale. The pre-sale was for Xcopy owners who were able to mint for 0.25 ETH based on if they held an Xcopy piece. And those raffle winners got to mint. We saw the floor get all the way up to about 12 ETH at one point. And then they had the public sale on Wednesday. The public sale was heavily botted. The website was botted and attacked. So they switched on a dime. They moved into a raffle mechanism that they asked folks on Twitter to apply for to make it essentially more fair. I'm sure some bots still got some of the raffle tickets, but Essentially, the 260 winners get to mint a grifter for 0.25 ETH. As you can see, that's quite an equitable mint, as the floor right now sits at 8.8. You get a sense of the art here. There's 3 or 4 different face types with different names, some different facial characteristics, and some different atmosphere characteristics, but it's definitely very recognizable as Xcopy. What's cool is that while this is a 666 set PFP project, each of these can be considered one of one, and it's definitely the most approachable price point for an Xcopy one of one that's out there. So I transparency, I purchased one of these this week. I'm looking to maybe acquire more. I love this project. It's Xcopy is the king of crypto art, #1 in my book, and this is, again, is the more approachable set. I think this will certainly hold long-term value. If you want to talk about what projects will be still be relevant in 3 years and 5 years, I think this one will be up there. But of course, not investment advice. Do your own research. The rest, as I mentioned, the rest of the week in super rare and one of one sales was fairly slow. We did see a notable sale from Archinair for 42 ETH, who also launched an addition project on Stampu this week as well. I want to say DK Motion was also involved in that. So go ahead and check out the Stampu site for more, and we can link that in our show notes. Let's go ahead and move into our blue chip PFPs, get into our next segment here. We'll start the CryptoPunks, the sales board, or the Punks for sale board rather, just to give folks a sense of, where these listing prices sit right now and a bit of the fall from grace. So we see the top of the sales board here in the 60s, low 60s, 61, 62. There are now over 200 CryptoPunks for sale under that 100 ETH floor. For folks who've been following the market, the floor held at 100 or higher for several months coming out of the summer mania. So certainly a gradual fall. Interestingly enough, Punk 4156 caught a lot of heat last week for selling and essentially selling below market. Well, those sales are looking really sharp in hindsight. So, whether he is a part of the market declining, or else maybe he saw the writing on the wall and where this market was going and he exited at a good time. But those sales are looking pretty solid in hindsight. And that really can't be disputed. Let's take a look at the rest of the floors, just from our friends over at WGMI.io. We touched on the Bored Apes. They're sitting at a 50 floor, so they're also down a bit on the week, but mostly holding steady. The flippening, it's a tight range. It's 50 versus 60 right now, apes versus punks. So will we see a potential flippening in 2021? It's possible, but my 2 cents, if it happens, it'll be because of the punks floor dropping and not because of the apes floor rising, at least here in the short term. But all eyes are on that potential flip. Checking quickly through the rest of these. Cool Cats 6.5, basically even on the week, slightly down. We've got the Cyber Kongs at 5, actually up 17% on the week. I mentioned Doodles, one of the biggest winners of the week. We're showing them at 4.25 here. Yeah, up 80% on the week. Huge week for them. The Gutter Cats are down a little bit here at 3.4. I got to talk about my friends, the Cryptodes. Rough week, down 29% on the week, in the mid twos, sitting at 2.45. This is a bit surprising, especially with Grimplin dropping the Mistletoes surprise free mint, which is a really cool project. But the market's not really appreciating that project too much right now, and it shows in the Toads price. So we'll continue to check in. That's our blue chip PFPs. Let's go ahead and switch into Art Blocks here while we've got the page up. We covered the top of the Art Blocks board quite a bit on the show. I want to spend some time on the lower end actually on today's show, but quickly up top, we got Fidenzas at 65, Ringers down at 30, down 40% on the week, and Elevated Deconstruction at 30. The mid-tier down fairly even on the week, but I want to talk about the lower end a bit. So let's keep scrolling down here, specifically below 2. So this is where things really start to get interesting. We've got Alien Clocks at 2 ETH, down 70% on the month, down from 6.5. We've got Pigments at 1.7, Phase at 1.6, Algorithms at 1.25, Geometry Runners at 1.1, and then below 1 ETH, we've got Century 0.9. What else do we have? Dreams at 0.6. The Dreams 4 was well over 6 ETH at one point. See if we have any more here. Tresets at 0.5. That pretty much gets us through the rest of the board. But my point being, we've gone down quite a bit in the Art Blocks Curated world. A lot of these sit down 70, 80% from peak high. We are in peak tax loss harvesting season right now with folks who have a lot of ETH gains on the year, who are looking to sell NFTs that they potentially bought at the top for steep discounts to potentially wipe out those gains. I think there's a lot of game theory in how long that tax loss harvesting window for prospective buyers will last. I think a lot of folks think it goes through 12/31, last day of the year. I'm not so certain. I feel like certain whales may come in and start to sweep floors a bit sooner than that, just because, thinking through, most folks are waiting until the end of the year, they're going to get a head start. We've actually seen that happen in a few projects, especially in generative art for the Aries projects. Both Formergence and Pole Square had their floors swept yesterday, actually. So I would not be surprised at all if we see some of these Art Block Curated floors get swept here in the next week. So certainly it'll be one to watch. But I would say if you have your eyes on one of these, you like the project, it can't really get too much cheaper than this. But, of course, everything can go down to zero. I do want to talk about the last curated drop of the week. So next Monday is the final Art Blocks curated drop of the year. It's called Jiometory No Compute. The artist is Samzy. We show a preview of the image here. I don't know if it's just me, and I'm a sucker for geometry-based art, but I think this one looks really cool. We'll read about it a little bit here. Random and Anarchy, Chaos and Structurality. Jiometory No Compute is a living motion experimental study, a contemplative geometry organism that lives now and forever. Each individual unit's movement contributes and flows into a generative path for a greater purpose. I definitely dig the artwork, and he actually goes further in the description here to say there are additional value adds from these NFTs. Unique working Game Boy cartridges certificate are redeemable for every holder of the NFT here that will be able to be redeemed, and of course a charitable aspect as well. So we have the Dutch auction format. It'll be interesting to see how low this one goes. He's a decently well-known artist. I think 7,000 followers on Twitter. I checked out his Super Rare page here this week. He's got 12 creations on Super Rare. They've been mostly slept on. We're showing his page here with just 4 highlights. You can see his style. It's an animated, kind of abstract 3D art is essentially the style. And actually this Genesis piece top left is very similar to the Art Blocks project that's coming out this week. So we actually saw a few of his pieces get picked up this week. I'm curious if more will get picked up leading up to his curated drop next Monday. We saw Jen Stark's heavily anticipated Vortex project mint out at 0.75 earlier this week. That's probably the early line I would set for this one, although I wouldn't be surprised if it goes a little bit earlier than that. All right, well, that takes us through Art Blocks. Let's move into sports and entertainment. Really just want to talk on a few brands dropping projects here this week. So today is a big drop for 2 brands. We're going to start with Adidas. Adidas has made several headlines in the last weeks and month, famously partnering with G Money, Pixel Vault, and the Punks comic team, as well as the Bored Ape community, to launch their version of the metaverse. So we're showing their Into the Metaverse project page here on the screen. This first left box describes that journey and the partnership they made, which has made a huge splash on Twitter and has all the NFT heads talking. And then now they're launching their first NFT. So what does the NFT grant you? A physical and a digital component. So the physical is exclusive Adidas originals. Essentially, what the gear is gear up for the iconic Addy Color Firebird tracksuit, a graphic hoodie, and G Money's classic orange beanie. So you get a quick glimpse here in the bottom right of what this gear could look like. That's the physical. The digital good is open metaverse virtual land experiences, co-created with the community through 2022 and beyond. So don't know exactly what open metaverse virtual land experiences means, but they've laid out the supply and the price. 30,000 NFT supply for 0.2 ETH. So they're set to raise about 6,000 ETH with this sale. They're giving early access to all the members of the Pixel Vault, BAYC, MAYC NFTs, as well as some of these popes. I believe the whitelist here, folks that qualify, is about 20,000 plus wallets. So folks are expecting this to be a very high demand drop. I've even heard gas war potentially, which is a little shocking to me given the supply that we're talking about here and this price point. But I can't argue with the fact that there is some clear demand for this, at least it seems. They've got 20K of these reserved for the whitelisted members, and then they have a public sale, which is going to be 9,620 NFTs or so. I don't know. My take, if you look at this in a vacuum, 0.2 ETH gets you a hoodie, maybe a beanie, and then virtual land experiences. I'm a little bearish. I'm paying $800 for a hoodie from Adidas at this point. But I guess the bull case is these two communities. They have very eager holders who love their communities. So it's potentially a play into the community. Essentially a tip for Adidas. Perhaps folks have been praising Adidas on how they've entered the NFT space through these partnerships. Well, we see that all these partnerships are now leading up to this 6,000 ETH payday for them. So good for Adidas, and we'll be watching to see if this one sells out, assuming it will. The second brand drop today is White Castle. So we've also praised White Castle on this show for kind of how they've launched into the NFT space with their picking up of a CHAM for their profile picture. They're picking up of an ENS domain, both very sharp moves. They're dropping it in NFT today, public sale, on the Doodle Labs platform. They're partnering with Chi-Yu Wu, who's actually the artist behind the CHAM NFT, who of course has a cult following. So what this NFT is essentially an animated White Castle slider. It's generative, so there's going to be 5,000 in the set. These cost 0.1 ETH to mint, and then there's different fast food sides that are a part of the different NFT types. So you've got your soda, your onion rings, fries. You can have one that have double sliders, the fish fillets, like all of those. Personally, I don't love the output here. I'm a Doodle Labs Family Mooks holder, specifically because it's the Genesis token that gives you early access to future Doodle Labs mint. This is now the first new mint that we received as Family Mooks holders to have first access to. I didn't mint this one. I don't really see that these are going to hold value at a 0.1 mint price. But they're cool, they're fun. So kudos to anyone who wants to mint these just from purely a collectible standpoint. But I'm not seeing a whole lot of utility or really much ongoing demand for these. But another one that will be certainly interesting to watch here today. So that's what's going on with the brands. A couple other drops I just want to quickly touch on before we end the show here today. So Interleave is doing a really interesting drop. So Loopify is a partner with this. Interleave describes himself as the first NFT production team. Loopify did a little tweet thread describing what this Arcadia Trilogy project is. It's essentially a small movie series, 5-minute videos that feature the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I think Meebits potentially could be in future of these videos. And then if you purchase the NFT, essentially it is serving as a Genesis token for Interleave, a recurring theme that we've covered on the show here today, these Genesis tokens. So giving you access to future NFTs from this project team. It's essentially a poster from the movie. The proceeds go to fund future work from Interleave and Loopify to continue building out this trilogy and future works for their roadmap. And then you can burn, I believe, 6+ of these NFTs to get access to a list of artists that they partnered with. So some fairly interesting utility there for these NFTs. But what was interesting to me about this drop, if we scroll down through their Twitter, they have dynamic mint pricing, which is one of the first times I've seen this mechanic put in place. So they've got a surge pricing mechanic. You can see the graphic here of how the mint price has changed over time. So essentially, based on the demand to mint, the price goes up. When there's a lot of demand, it goes down when there's lesser demand. They launched this as a 48-hour mint window yesterday evening. I want to say it went live, yesterday afternoon. So you can see Thursday, 4:07 p.m. Right off the gun, it looks like there was a lot of demand and the price went up. Looks like it got close to 0.2 there. And then as minting demand decreased into the evening, it dropped closer to that 0.1, and it looks it picked back up here in the evening. So that's how their dynamic pricing is going. It'll be interesting to watch this as we near the end of the 48-hour window, as well as if future product teams will look to implement something similar. But it's an interesting model. I definitely say I like it, and it's innovative. Last product I want to highlight here for today, it's called Ink Blocks. So actually a Twitter friend reached out a few weeks ago about a new idea that he had been working on. We got on a phone call and talked about it. I thought it was pretty cool, and agreed to talk about it on the show because I think it is fairly innovative. So I'm showing their website here right now. It's called theinkblocks.com. What are ink blocks? Historically, tattoo clients buy an artist's time. Now you can buy the actual tattoo as an NFT and own the exclusive right to apply it on your body. So we can see here just a few examples of the tattoo artwork designs that they have here from two of the first artists that they partnered with, Sweet Sue and Jesse Preston, both who are famous artists in the tattoo artist world. So a little bit more about their vision. I asked them specifically, is this a project or is this meant to be a platform? They are viewing this as absolutely a platform to enable tattoo artists to be able to sell their work directly to collectors. It's essentially a new way to be able to collect tattoos, to be able to buy and sell tattoos. It's also a new way to support tattoo artists and their artwork. So previously the model has been essentially paying tattoo artists for their time. And a lot of these artists, especially the ones who have built up really strong followings, that's because of the quality of their work and essentially the art that they create through their tattoos. So now this is a new way to provide a revenue stream for these tattoo artists as well as the collectors to be able to buy, support, and potentially even sell in the future some of these tattoo NFTs. Additionally, I think there's certainly a right-click save as, could anyone just go and get this tattoo made? Of course, it's going to be hard to stop early on, but part of the vision is if more and more artists start to support this, that one would be presenting proof of NFT to actually get the tattoo NFT tattooed on someone's body. So I think that's a really interesting concept and see how that could potentially play out in the future. Additionally, metaverse question mark. There's ideas that they could potentially allow owners of these NFTs to use these NFTs on some of their different PFP collectibles in the metaverse. So you own a Clone X or a Meebit. Clone X might be a bad example, but let's say you own a Meebit. Potentially, they find a way to be able to put this tattoo that you own also on your Meebit PFP, which could definitely be very cool. So the product team is just getting started. They're in kind of a soft launch right now, but go ahead and check this out if you're interested. The inkblocks.com. We'll post it in our show notes as well. All right, folks, that's it. That's our show for today. As always, thanks to our listeners and viewers for tuning in. We will be back on Tuesday to recap the weekend. It's probably going to be our only show next week with Christmas coming up next weekend. Still a little bit TBD week after Christmas. If we see a lot of action over the holidays, we might come back for a show that following week, or else next week might be our final show of the year. But we'll make sure everyone stays up to date through our Twitter. But for all of our listeners, have a good weekend, everyone. Until next time, stay safe in those NFT streets. Goodbye.